Hey everyone, I'm back, and today we're going to be talking about Fame. And this movie came out in 1980, directed by Alan Parker, and he's someone I'm not familiar with at all. I've never seen any of his movies. I am just being introduced to his filmography with Fame, and I know this movie won some Oscars, and that's all I knew going into it, and it was fine. One of my biggest problems with this movie is the structure. There's a lot of characters in this movie, and right out of the gate, we have problem number one: too many characters. Why are there so many characters? And we get so many different perspectives on different characters, and it makes it almost impossible to figure out what's going on in the plot, whatever the plot of this movie is. And it's just teenagers going through high school, going through the motions, and it's 2.5 hours long for no reason. That's another issue I have with the movie. It's too long because there's nothing about it that justifies that runtime. There are elements that I do like, and I would say I really enjoyed the middle chunk of the movie. That's the best part of the movie for me. But unfortunately, where this movie really drags is the first 30 minutes and the last 45 minutes. Like an hour and 15 minutes of this movie I can do without. I enjoyed an hour, and that's about it. As far as like entertainment goes, from like the story and the three-act structure, if that makes sense. There are some other things that I do like. I like the music. I thought it was catchy, which is surprising to me because I usually am not the biggest fan of 80s music, but this stuff I do like, and I believe it won an Oscar for one of the songs that it was nominated. I think this was the first movie that was nominated for 2 Oscars for music category for original song, I believe. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And also another thing that I like is it takes place in New York, and it's also shot in New York. And that was another thing that I kind of liked, because you do get a feel for that city that you're in. Like, people don't necessarily want to be here. They kind of want to get out. And I thought that was handled well, and it made it pretty clear that that was the case for these characters. The acting, I thought, was good. No one stood out to me as bad. There were no standout performances or characters, but as far as performances go, they were all... No one did a bad job, like, that stood out to me. And lastly, my last positive that I have for this movie that I took notes of, I thought the romances were handled well at the beginning. I'll get more into the drama later, but as far as romance in terms of like introducing it to the story, I thought it was handled well. It didn't feel forced to me. I was like, oh, okay, characters are like naturally falling in love with each other and like developing feelings for each other. Like that, I liked. And for my negatives for the movie, the stuff that I didn't mention yet, I didn't really care for the comedy in the film. Not that there's a joke every 5 seconds. This is not a comedy, but there are jokes within the film, and they didn't land for me. I didn't find them funny except for one joke. And there were points where I was struggling to figure out, is this supposed to be intentionally funny or unintentionally funny? Because I was laughing at the movie at certain points, but I'm not sure if that was an intentional joke or not. I was a bit confused, but I laughed anyway. Also, I wasn't really a big fan of the slower pacing, especially in the first 30 minutes and the last 45 minutes, because I just didn't feel like I was getting anything out of the experience. Like, normally when you have a slower pacing, it's because you want your audience to take in the atmosphere or like get a feeling for what these characters are going through or something like that. But I didn't get that from this movie. I just was watching it and just casually taking notes while I was kind of bored. And there were too many close shots in this movie. It felt like I was watching a Safdie Brothers movie. And like I said earlier, I thought it was cool that it was shot in New York. And you do get a feeling that what you're being shown is in New York, but it just doesn't show it properly for me for the most part, because I can't really see the location, what room we are in too well, or like I would like a nice establishing wide shot of New York. Like that would be beautiful, but we don't get that. Instead, we get lots of close-ups and medium shots. Sometimes we can't even see the entirety of the room, like I said already, and not the best shot film ever, in my opinion. And to get into the drama of the movie, I don't think it was handled well, especially once we get to the last 45 minutes, because maybe I missed something, but it kind of felt like half the time it was out of nowhere, and the other half of the time it was just, really, we're doing this? Or like nothing about this felt earned, and like characters are just stupid. Like, is that really something you would do? Like, I was more confused at points than with the movie, and I hate how repetitive the movie is at points, because it's just repeating the same thing over and over again without building on anything. Like, for example, we have a point in the movie where we get to school 30 minutes into the movie, and all the teachers are like, oh, everything is hard. This is going to be really hard. And if you don't do well here, then you're going to do poorly in your other classes. And like, they were just beating you over the head. And I just was thinking like, okay, we got it once, stop. But instead we get it like 3 times within the same scene, and it's never built on. Like, you could have so many interesting ideas expanded on right there, but they just avoid them just to make them feel, or characters to feel as though like, okay, we're just going to go through the motions, not question anything that we're being told. Like, okay, there's a point in the movie where it's like, one of the characters likes to play an accordion. I think that's the instrument. And his band teacher is like, that's not an instrument. And I was like, okay, can we build on this? And then he just like shuts him down and just saying like, that's not music. And I was like, why? Or what's wrong with that? Like, you can easily explore certain things in this movie, but they just choose not to, because I guess they're just drawn out of ideas. They don't have the talent to figure out these things. And I hate the teachers and the parents in the movie, because they serve no purpose. Like, the teachers are just there to be elitists, and they're very annoying characters. And the parents, they're not there for their children. They're just there to pound certain ideas into your head, and like just crap that you've been told a million times, and not build on any of it. Like, just build on something. Why can't you do that? Like, can you not use critical thinking? Like, that's what makes these things interesting, or anything like worth exploring. And so frustrating. I want to just like almost spoil the movie, but there's really no point in like spoiling it, because there's like nothing to spoil really, because nothing really happens. And there's also like no character arcs throughout the entire film. And maybe there was, and I just wasn't paying attention to it, or I was just bored and it just flew over my head. But there was nothing satisfying throughout the entire film. Like, I wasn't satisfied once we got to the conclusion of the film, and that was bad. And also another thing, when bad things happen to these student characters, like, it doesn't impact the adults at all. Like, we barely get their perspective. I just think to a movie like Waves, where like the actions of children actually affects the adults, and you see that and you do feel for those characters. However, in this movie, we barely get their perspective, and they barely work with the students, the teachers at least, and the parents, same thing, I guess. So I don't know why these teachers are teachers, because they don't work with students really. They seem really lazy. So, yeah. Not a very interesting movie. Very surface level. Has some good things about it. And it's not offensively bad. And that's about all I can say about it. It was a movie. So, with all that being said, I'm going to give Fame a 5 out of 10. Thank you for watching my videos. As always, if you enjoyed this review, be sure to leave a like and comment down below you thought of Fame, and my social media links. They will all be in the description, so follow me there. And last but not least, subscribe to be a part of Foley Nation, and I'll see you when I get my next review up, and that is going to be for X. So look forward to that, but until I get that up, thank you for watching and have a great day.